afternoon. I'm Will Michael, and thank you for choosing Across the Fence. It is the fourth Wednesday of the month, which means it's time for our Bird Notes program. Today we'll be learning about some of the birds along the coastline, specifically the Jersey Shore. Joining us is bird expert and conservation biologist Mark LaBarr of Audubon Vermont. Mark, thanks for bringing us another edition of Bird Notes.
Always happy to, Will.
Now, over the years working with you, you've traveled around, and when you do travel, you come back and tell us. I've been to the Caribbean, I've been to the Keys, I've been down south. Today, in this edition, as I've hinted here, you're going to take us to the Jersey coastline.
Yeah, so I was down the shore, as those of us from New Jersey.
Very
I grew
nice.
up in Jersey and grew up going down to the beach, and you know, one of the things, I was going there for a family component, and so as a birder you have to balance, you know, family time and birding time. So I did what I call passive birding, which is basically, if the birds and I cross paths, we cross paths and I see them. You know, it's not too different from Bridget Butler, the bird diva's slow birding.
Bridget has been with us.
Yeah,
yes.
so, you know, where she sits and watches behavior over a period of time. It's kind of lazy birding.
But don't we all engage in that when we put our feeders out? Isn't that what I do when I'm seeing my cardinals and nuthatches and whatnot?
We certainly do. And, you know, passive birding, if you want to say, is sitting on your porch and, you know, if a sharp-shinned hawk flies by, you saw a sharp-shinned hawk, you know, or looking at your feeders. It's just that simple, yeah.
So with this concept of passive birding then, what did you experience? What did you see on the shore?
You know, the thing about passive birding is sometimes you hit it big and sometimes you don't. So while I was on the, you know, down the shore, laying on the beach, as one does, you know, I was keeping an eye on the birds there. And of course, there were gulls, like the herring gull. You know, this is a picture from Bettina aragoni. And they were all around. And gulls are kind of fun because, you know, this is a herring gull in wintering plumage, has that red dot on the bill. But you can see some other brown birds in the background. So gulls have these different plumage characteristics.
Which is, I think, why I struggle with very different types of gulls. The one thing I note is that red piece, because I learned that in elementary school.
Right, so, and that's the bill, you know, the chick pecks on to get food. But those immature gulls, it, you know, can take a couple of years for a gull to reach maturity, can often be challenging for even the best birders.
So that first one was a herring gull.
The herring gull, you know.
And then we began to see a second guy.
Yeah,
that's a big gull.
It is a big gull. This is a great black-back gull. And you see it has that same dot on the bill, but that distinct black back and its size. It's one of the largest gulls around. We have both of these birds on Lake Champlain, not as much as the ring-billed gull, but you can find these on the lake.
This guy looks like he goes to the gym.
Yeah. Well, as I'm sitting there, no binoculars, you know, I'm just, that's nice to see gulls because they're right there in front of you, and you know, you hold, you know, they're going after your food and everything like that, so you get a close view.
All right,
and then
you have another guy.
We do, one that we don't see here. This is a laughing gull. And again, these birds have moved into their winter plumage. So this bird would normally have a much darker cap and a reddish bill. So, you know, just to mix it up, something that we don't normally see up north. So, you know,
so
I'll chalk
at
that
least
up as a good
three
bird.
different types of gulls that you're passively birding as you're bathing at the beach.
That's right. And then, of course, you know, down the shore, you're parking a car, and I happen to come across this bird in a marsh on the bayside of down, you know, the shore up down around Island Beach State Park, and this is the marsh wren. Again, another bird that we have here in some of our larger marshes, relative of the Carolina wren, the house wren, the winter wren. And so there you go, you know, marsh wren, check, you know, I've got that one, walk back up to the house.
He's chirping right away, saying hi.
He was singing, you know, those last two, the great blackback gull was Matthew Bizzotti's picture, and Francis Hudson did the laughing gull, and then Duke Conrad did that.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
Wide open.
Yep.
So, again, you're on the shore. You've been doing some passive work, but I also know that you do a little bit more than passive birding. You do,
Yeah,
you call it active birding?
Yeah, you know, it's a combination. You get a couple hours, you've been with your family for 2 days, and maybe you need a little time off on a local trail. So
Go see some other birds.
Go see some other birds. And, you know, there was a big migration push because of the hurricane that was rotating off the coast with, you know, there was a big southward flow of air and westward flow of air. And so I went down to a trail at Island Beach State Park just to see what was around. In my head, I said, "What, you know, I set a goal. What do you want to see? A Cape May warbler." So I get on this trail, and it's always fun. You know, you're walking down the trail. One of my favorite birds, the gray catbird, squawking away on either side. It's kind of a shrub coastal beach forest. And so great to hear that. But then, of course, you come around the corner, and there are the cameras, and the local birders are there. So always good to get a clue as to where you might go to see some of the birds that are there. So as you're walking by, you throw out there, you know, what do you got? And, you know, they're like, oh, down at the flag tree. You go down to the beach, make a right on the bay side and go to the flag tree.
Corner.
I've never been to the flag tree. But I figured,
Until now.
oh, yeah, it's a flag and a tree, I'll find it. So as I'm walking down there, you know, I start hearing a white-eyed vireo start singing. And this is a great bird because it's one that we don't get here. We have the red-eyed vireo as our most common vireo here. But this one is a bird that when I was banding birds in Mississippi many years ago, I think on a single day I banded 250 white-eyed vireos during migration. So that, again, nice little plus on my, you know, bird list for the weekend.
And I remember when your daughter, in her younger years, would sometimes come in with you, and she's a big fan of the, it's not the white-eyed, but it must have been some type of vireo because I remember that.
Yes, yeah. So the red-eyed sings all the time in our woods, the philosopher of the woods. And then, you know, you're moseying along, another familiar face
Go down,
pops
take
up.
another right.
Yeah, then, you know, and all of a sudden there's a common yellowthroat. And, you know, this bird is, again, it normally has a black mask, the males do. So a lot of these warblers don't have the colors that they have in the spring. They've molted into a winter plumage. But yeah, nice to see a friend as you're
And a
walking
beautiful
along.
picture that David DeRocher took,
Yep,
and he's getting a little bite to eat there.
And you know, when you go by some birders, some of them have some really big cameras and get some great shots, and this is a result of that. Then I make the turn, I'm heading down towards the flag tree, and of course I knew it was the flag tree because there were about 7 people standing there.
With cameras and binoculars.
With cameras, binoculars, there was I think it was a tour. So I, you know, just kind of hung back and listened to the tour guy give his spiel. And I had an American redstart. There were a whole bunch of American redstarts actually that were there. And this is a fairly common bird in Vermont, again, moving south. It's another warbler. This is a young male. You can tell by that little bit of yellowish orange underneath the wing there. And the male is really distinctive because it's all black with orange on its wings. And so again, you know, birding can be a little bit of a challenge when you get to these smaller birds this time of year because of their color changes, but that's part of the fun.
Now, was there this isn't new to you, you've been there before, but was there a species in particular that you said I really did want to see?
You know, I'm the only birder in my family, so
Don't tell May that.
Well, that's true. That's true. I get the brunt of a lot of, you know, I'm going birding, and they're like, oh yeah, what do you want to see? And just as an outside, I said, you know, a Cape May warbler. Now, this is a bird that we don't get.
Sharp-looking bird.
Yeah, and this is their winter plumage too. So even sharper in the spring, but we only see them during migration here in Vermont. They nest further north. This was by Lorraine Minnesapa. And as I'm sitting there listening to the fellow talk about it, sure enough, he sees a Cape May warbler. I didn't see it right then, but as the group left, I sat down on a log, and sure enough, it popped back up for me. And so I, you know, was able to go back to my house and say,
because here with Audubon, you have done some special work with the yellow warbler.
So with the golden winged warbler.
Thank you. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, no, yellows, goldens, yep. And so that bird moves a lot earlier than now. So I didn't think I was going to see one of those.
My notes tell us you have one more that you kind of wanted to see.
So I'm backtracking and I'm moving along. I come across the group of folks that with their cameras, and we have a conversation, and lo and behold, a Philadelphia vireo pops up. And gave us a nice little show on a branch. Again, these are local birders that come down pretty much every day and knew where all the hot spots were. One of them said, "Oh, we've had a yellow-billed cuckoo up at the big tree." There were a lot of big trees, and so I didn't.
Supposed to take a left.
I know. I didn't quite get the yellow-billed cuckoo, but it's always fun to go birding, and you find folks that. For instance, Mount Philo had a big hawkwash push, and there's always birders up there willing to help and point things out for you. It's a great community.
We were talking before we got started about what we do see in our own corridors, and while we dedicated today to take have you share this trip with us, we can enjoy this passive and active stuff right in our own backyards.
You walk outside, my ears and eyes are constantly open and taking note. This time of year there are a lot of interesting birds, not only in the trees and shrubs, but overhead. You said you've had a red tail that's been hanging out and feeding.
I have wonderful noise, and when you hear that noise and you hear that shriek, you look.
Yes.
And there they are.
Yep. And they can have regular haunts.
Yeah.
But a lot of birds this time right now is, big hawk migration. So,
Mark, this is where I'm going to point out for our viewers, if they have any bird-related questions, you can pass them along to Mark. We're going to put the address on your screen. It's 255 Sherman Hollow Road in Huntington. Or send Mark an email, and he'll try to find an answer for you on an upcoming edition of Bird Notes. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for sharing a bit of your trip and for being with us once again from the Green Mountain Audubon Center in Huntington.
Sure. Keep your eyes and ears open.
Always. That is our program for today. We know you have choices, so thanks for choosing us. I'm Will Michael, inviting you to join us back here each weekday afternoon for another visit across the fence.